On the surface, this crisis is cooling down. On April 21, 2026, Trump announced on Truth Social that the U.S.-Iran ceasefire would be extended. Oil pulled back from $101 to $98 a barrel. Pakistan's Prime Minister Sharif thanked the world. Talks hadn't collapsed. Every headline said the same thing. The situation is stabilizing. But on the exact same day that Washington announced the extension, the Gulf states' most senior analysts and diplomats were quietly passing around an assessment that sent chills down their spines. The core conclusion of that assessment was a single sentence. These negotiations are handing the keys to the Strait of Hormuz to Tehran, permanently. Dr. Ebtissam Al-Ketbi, president of the Emirates Policy Center, used one phrase to describe what she was watching unfold: a deliberate engineering of sustainable conflict. Dr. Mohammed Baharoun of Dubai's Booth Research Center voiced the deeper fear. The limits of relying on a single external protector are now plain for everyone to see. That external protector is the United States. And in the very same week, 10,000 kilometers away in Tokyo, something happened that would have been unthinkable at any other moment in the past 80 years. This is tactical trace. We don't worship the tech tree, we only ask one question: does it work? Today's board looks like it has two players, but when you pull back the lens, you'll see the entire world quietly moving toward a new order, and no one announced its arrival. To understand why Gulf officials are trembling, you need to hear how Iranian officials described the Strait of Hormuz. During ceasefire negotiations, Iranian officials called Hormuz a golden, invaluable strategic asset. A source close to the Revolutionary Guards described it as a sword drawn from its sheath. The implication was unmistakable. They have no intention of putting it back. This is not diplomatic posturing, it is a public strategic declaration. A Reuters analysis laid bare the deepest fear in the Gulf. The second round of negotiations is quietly shifting its focus away from Iran's missile program, proxy forces, and nuclear ambitions, down to a single question: the Strait of Hormuz. Who controls it? One Gulf source close to government circles told Reuters the line that made everyone go cold. At the end of the day, Hormuz will be the red line. It wasn't an issue before. It is now. The goalposts have moved. But what suffocates Gulf leaders most isn't Iran's threat itself. It's their seat at the table, which doesn't exist. No Gulf state sat in Islamabad. Washington and Tehran were negotiating the fate of the entire region, and the people who actually live inside that region were left waiting at home for results. Dr. Baharoun of Booth Research said something that cuts to the bone. The limits of relying on a single external protector are now plain for everyone to see. Now let's read the physical bill from these 50 days. The Strait of Hormuz normally carries roughly 1/5 of the world's daily oil and natural gas supply through a waterway just 33 kilometers wide. Since Iran closed it on February 28th, 50 days have passed. Transit volume: near zero. Energy analyst Johnston, quoted by CNBC, put a number on it that stops you cold. Supply disruptions have now exceeded 500 million barrels of crude oil, condensates, and liquefied natural gas combined. His warning was direct. Even if a deal is struck tomorrow, this damage cannot be immediately undone. The crisis is one of lost time and lost production. The IMF confirmed it this week. Even if the ceasefire holds, global economic growth will inevitably take a hit, as Hormuz uncertainty remains a persistent structural drag on energy costs and inflation. Their conclusion was simple: we are not going back to the Goldilocks scenario. But what truly chokes the market is what happened after Trump's ceasefire extension announcement. Oil pulled back from $101 to $98. Analysts were nearly unanimous. This is not a signal the crisis has passed. It is speculative money temporarily retreating. The moment talks collapse again, or the moment Iran reimposed restrictions on the strait, which it already did once on the day after the ceasefire took effect, prices will spike faster and harder than last time. Meanwhile, the blockade keeps generating its own momentum. The USS Spruance intercepted the Iranian-flagged cargo vessel Tuska in the Gulf of Oman, fired on its engine room, and sent Marines rappelling from helicopters to seize control of a vessel 275 meters long. Iran's foreign ministry called it extremely dangerous criminal behavior. The Revolutionary Guard vowed retaliation. Then the ceasefire extended by a few more days. This is not a negotiation. This is a psychological war being played with the global energy market as the stake, and the dice being rolled every few days. In the same week, the Hormuz standoff reached its deepest point, 10,000 kilometers away in a Tokyo cabinet meeting room. A door that had been sealed for 80 years was quietly pushed open. On April 21st, the Japanese cabinet approved the biggest overhaul of defense export rules since the end of World War II. The content was simple, the weight was extraordinary. Japan scrapped restrictions across 5 categories of military exports, fully opening the door to overseas sales of warships, missiles, and other defense equipment. Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi said, "No single country can now protect its own peace and security alone." Behind that sentence lives a fast-growing reality. Poland is asking for price lists. The Philippines is asking for price lists. India is asking for price lists. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries has built submarines, fighter jets, and missiles for more than half a century. But until this week, it had exactly one customer: Japan's self-defense forces. That single-lane road just became a global highway. Reuters captured the geopolitical core in one sentence: wars in Ukraine and the Middle East are straining U.S. weapons production, while U.S. allies are looking to diversify suppliers as Washington's long-held security commitments look less certain under President Donald Trump. This isn't because Japan suddenly grew stronger, it's because a crack appeared in American credibility. And in that same week, across the world in Western Europe, Dutch intelligence agencies AIVD and MIVD issued a rare public warning: global security threats are rising across every domain, and Europe must focus on building its own defense because it can no longer rely on a single external partner for security guarantees. More strikingly, Dutch intelligence has already begun applying case-by-case review to intelligence sharing with the United States, out of concern that shared information could be politicized or used in ways that work against European interests. The Dutch intelligence service is now applying a discount to the United States, same week. 3 things. Gulf analysts say you can't rely on a single protector. Dutch intelligence is discounting America. Japan announces it will sell weapons to the world. 3 different places, 1 message. The whole world is watching the Islamabad negotiating table. Everyone is tracking Trump's Truth Social account. Every trader is chasing every cent of oil's movement. But backstage, someone is quietly counting money. That person is Vladimir Putin. Oil prices remain near $100. Western price caps on Russian oil have been rendered functionally worthless by global energy panic. European and Asian buyers are quietly abandoning sanctions compliance and turning back to Russian supply. Every additional day Hormuz stays blocked, every additional day oil prices stay elevated, is another day of revenue flowing directly into Russia's military-industrial complex. Putin is also watching something else unfold in silence. American strategic attention is pinned to the Middle East, and U.S. deterrence capacity in the Pacific and Europe is being diluted. The Kremlin and Beijing are methodically logging every American military asset movement, every response time window. But the deepest logic on this board runs even further. Iran played the Hormuz card and triggered a process it never anticipated. It forced every mid-sized power on Earth to simultaneously realize the era of depending on a single protector is over. Japan is drawing its sword. Europe is arming itself. Gulf states are looking for alternatives. And this is precisely the geopolitical outcome that Russia and China spent the last decade dreaming about. America's unipolar security order is loosening from the inside. Not because they won any war, but because Hormuz was blocked for 50 days, 500 million barrels of oil disappeared from the market, and the world's most powerful nation could not tell its allies when any of it would end. Looking back at this entire board, 2 logics emerge with uncomfortable clarity. First, the worst outcome of a negotiation is not failure. It is success on the wrong terms. If these talks ultimately acknowledge Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz in any form, the Gulf states' nightmare becomes permanent. 50 days ago, Hormuz was an international waterway that the entire world took for granted as open. Today it has become a geopolitical card that can be played at will. Once that card is legitimized by a negotiated agreement, it will never go back in the deck. Every barrel of oil that passes through will carry a permanent Iranian Hormuz risk premium. One Gulf source said it precisely: the goalposts have moved. It wasn't an issue before, now it always will be. Second, when the protector becomes unreliable, everyone starts buying their own weapons. The Dutch intelligence report, Japan's arms export policy shift, the anxiety of Gulf officials, three things from three different parts of the world, pointing to the same terminal logic. America's credibility as the global security provider is eroding at a visible pace. This is not anti-American sentiment, it is pure risk management. When your insurance company starts behaving unpredictably, you learn firefighting yourself. 500 million barrels, 50 days, a ceasefire that nearly collapsed a dozen times. These numbers are not just an energy bill. They are the Richter scale reading of a geopolitical earthquake that is rewriting the global security order in real time. This is the equation Tactical Trace believes in. The Hormuz crisis will not end with a ceasefire document. It has already opened three fractures in the foundation of the global security system, one in the Middle East, one in Europe, one in Asia-Pacific, and these three fractures are the same tectonic movement surfacing in different places on the map. If you want to see through the cold numbers to the real war games and power shifts underneath, subscribe to Tactical Trace, hit that like button, and ring the bell. We don't trust ceasefire announcements. We only track what the physical reality delivers as the final bill. See you on the next battlefield.